My friends, have you ever met someone who made your whole system go quiet? I used to think soulmate was just a beautiful word people used when they were afraid to be alone. I trusted logic. I trusted effort. I trusted timing, discipline, control. I believed love had to fit into the mission or it would become a distraction from it. But then I met her, and not in the way people describe in stories. No lightning, no perfect music, just a strange calm, a mirror. She did not complete me like I was broken. She reflected the version of me I had been too afraid to become. Look at me when I say this. Sometimes love does not arrive to pull you away from your purpose. Sometimes it arrives to show you why your purpose needed a heart. And maybe that is what scared me most. Because ambition can build a future. But only love can teach you how to live inside it. Love is not what slows destiny down. It is the mirror that teaches destiny where to go. I used to believe love was something you earned after the work was done, after the mission was stable, after the world stopped demanding pieces of you. I thought I could design my life like a machine with inputs, outputs, pressure, discipline, and results. I thought if I controlled enough variables, I could protect myself from disappointment. Maybe you know that feeling. Maybe you have smiled through your own kind of loneliness, because it felt easier than admitting you wanted to be chosen without having to prove. I understand that more than I used to admit. I built walls and called them standards. I buried longing and called it focus. I told myself I did not believe in soulmates because believing in something that deep meant accepting that I could not control everything. And then she appeared, not like an answer, but like a question I could not ignore. She did not force herself into my life. She did not demand attention. She simply had this quiet way of existing that made my noise feel unnecessary. That is what surprised me. I had met beauty before. I had met intelligence before. I had met people who admired the version of me that looked strong from a distance. But she saw something else. She saw the pauses. She saw the fatigue behind the vision. She saw the man behind the momentum. And when someone sees you without trying to own you, something inside you starts to breathe differently. Have you ever been seen so calmly that it made you nervous? That was the first crack in my certainty. I realized I had mistaken emotional distance for strength. I thought being hard to reach made me safer, but it only made love work harder to find me. I had trained myself to solve problems, but She was not a problem. She was a presence. That sounds simple, but it changed everything. Presence does not argue with your armor. It waits until you get tired of wearing it. And I was tired, even if I did not say it out loud. I was tired of being admired but not understood, needed but not known, surrounded but not held in the places where words usually fail. But here is what nobody told me. The right person does not always feel like excitement at first. Sometimes the right person feels like silence after a storm. Sometimes she feels like the first honest breath after years of performing certainty. I expected love to interrupt my uncertainty. But with her, love clarified it. It made me ask why I was building anything if there was no one I could be real with inside the life I was building. What is success worth if you cannot not remove the mask when you come home to your own heart? Tell me honestly, when was the last time you felt safe enough to be unfinished? I began to understand that vulnerability is not collapse. Vulnerability is precision. It is the moment when the soul stops wasting energy on disguise. I used to think opening up would make me weaker, but it made me more accurate. When I let her see the parts of me that were not polished, I did not become smaller. I became whole. She did not praise my image. She respected my truth. There is a difference. Praise can inflate you, but truth can steady you. And I think that is why her presence felt so rare. She was not impressed by the surface for long. She wanted the real architecture underneath. Trust came slowly, and I am grateful it did. Anything sacred should not be rushed. I had to learn that trust is not built by grand declarations, but by small consistencies repeated until the nervous system believes peace is possible. She taught me that without teaching. She stayed gentle. She stayed honest. She did not confuse patience with weakness. And I started to notice something I had ignored for years. Love is not by intensity alone. Love is proven by alignment. It is proven when two people can stand close without swallowing each other, when they can dream together without turning each other into tools for their own emptiness. Wait, before you think this became easy, hear this. The mirror can be beautiful, but it can also be uncomfortable. When someone reflects your soul clearly, they also reflect the places where you are still hiding. She made me aware of my impatience, my fear of needing anyone, my habit of turning pain into productivity before I ever let myself feel it. I did not like seeing that at first. Nobody does. We prefer mirrors that flatter us. But a soulmate, if that word means anything real, is not a fantasy designed to make you feel perfect. A soulmate is a mirror strong enough to show you who you are becoming. And that is where presence became more powerful than promises. I stopped needing the loudest assurance and started watching the quiet evidence. Was there peace in her attention? Was there honesty in her silence? Was there room for both of us to grow without fear? I learned to value the person who can sit with you in uncertainty without making your uncertainty feel like failure. That is rare. In a world addicted to instant proof, someone who can wait with love is almost sacred. You know what I mean? The heart does not always need a speech. Sometimes it needs someone who does not leave when the room gets quiet. So when I say I did not believe in soulmates until I met her, I do not mean I suddenly believed in a perfect person. I mean, I began to believe in a kind of recognition deeper than attraction, deeper than the timing, deeper than desire. So, I recognized a version of myself in her reflection that felt more honest than the one I had been defending. She did not complete me like a missing piece. She reminded me that I was not created only to achieve, endure, and keep moving. I was also created to connect, to soften, to be witnessed, to build something where love was not the reward after the mission, but the light that helped me choose the mission wisely. Trust was the part I resisted most, because trust asks for something ambition never asked from me. Ambition asked me to work harder, think clearer, stay longer, sacrifice more, and keep moving when no one understood the cost. I knew how to do that. I had trained myself for pressure. But trust asked me to stop controlling the outcome for a moment and allow another human being to stand close to the places I usually protected. That felt more dangerous than failure. Failure I could analyze, failure I could rebuild from. But being known by someone, being quietly understood by someone, meant I could not hide behind performance forever. With her, I started to see that trust is not a leap off a cliff. It is more like learning the weight of someone's hand in the dark. It is gradual, it is quiet, it is built in moments nobody applauds. The way she listened when I did not have the perfect words, the way she did not rush to fix what I was still learning to name, the way she made space without making me feel weak for needing it. I had spent so much of my life trying to become unshakable that I forgot the heart was never designed to live without shelter. Maybe you know what that feels like. Maybe you have been the strong one for so long that softness feels suspicious. Maybe when someone finally offers care, without a hidden demand, you do not relax at first. You examine it, you test it, you wonder when it will change. I did that too. I looked for the flaw in the piece because I had been conditioned to believe peace was temporary, but she did not punish my caution. She did not take my fear personally. She understood somehow that a guarded heart does not need pressure. It needs proof wrapped in patience. And here is the strange thing. The proof was never loud. It was not in dramatic promises or perfect words. It was in her consistency. It was in the way her presence remained steady when my mind became complicated. I had known people who loved the idea of me, but not the maintenance of me. They wanted the fire, not the responsibility of warmth. She was different. She did not chase the brightest version of me and disappear when I became human. She stayed close enough to remind me that I did not have to earn tenderness every single day. That shook me more than I expected, because when someone stays, not out of dependency, not out of fear, not out of need, but out of choice, something inside you begins to reorganize. You stop treating love like a negotiation. You stop assuming every quiet moment is the beginning of distance. You stop measuring every message, every silence, every look, like you are trying to predict the collapse before it happens. Have you ever done that? Have you ever been so afraid of lose and peace you could not fully receive it while it was standing right in front of you? I had to learn that presence is greater than promises, because promises can be spoken by anyone. But presence requires the whole person. Presence means I am here, not just when you are impressive, but when you are uncertain. I am here not just when your vision is glowing, but when your hands are tired from carrying it. I am here not to rescue you from yourself, but to remind you that you are allowed to be witnessed while becoming. She gave me that without making it feel like a performance. Slowly, love is not proven by intensity. It is proven by return. It is proven after betrayal, not return after betrayal, not return after carelessness. I mean the daily return, the emotional return. The decision to come back to honesty when ego wants distance. The decision to come back to gentleness when pride wants victory. The decision to come back to the center when life pulls both people toward their own storms. That is where trust grows. Not in fantasy, but in repair. Not in perfection, but in rhythm. Love has a rhythm. When it is real, it breathes. It listens, it adjusts, it does not demand that two people become identical. It teaches them how to move without abandoning themselves. But I need to tell you something I did not understand at first. Trusting her did not mean losing myself. That was my old fear. I thought love would ask me to shrink my dreams, lower my standards, soften my drive until I became less live. But real love did the opposite. It made my vision cleaner. It removed the noise. It asked me why I wanted what I wanted, and whether I was building from purpose or from pain. That question changed me. Because sometimes ambition is not vision. Sometimes ambition is a wound trying to become impressive enough to be safe. She became the mirror again there, not by criticizing me, not by standing above me, just by reflecting the truth with a kind of mercy I was not used to receiving. In her presence, I could see which parts were disciplined and which parts were defended. I could see where I was brave and where I was only busy. And that kind of seeing can feel uncomfortable before it feels healing. Look at me when I say this. The person who is meant for your soul will not always make your ego comfortable. Sometimes they will disturb your patterns, so your peace can finally come home. That is why I started to believe in something beyond logic, though not against logic. I still believe in effort. I still believe in timing. I still believe in building a life with intention. But now I believe that destiny sometimes speaks through recognition. It doesn't always arrive with thunder. Sometimes it arrives as one woman who makes you feel less alone in your own mind. Someone whose presence does not distract you from becoming, but calls you into a truer version of becoming. And when that happens, you stop asking whether soulmates are real in the childish sense. You start asking whether your heart has finally met a mirror honest enough to guide it. I began to realize that timing is not just about when two people meet. It is about what life has carved into them before they are able to recognize each other. Before her, I thought timing meant convenience. I thought love should arrive when my schedule was clean, my mind was clear, and my life had room for it. But real love rarely asks for permission that politely. It often arrives when you are still becoming, when you are still unfinished, when your hands are full of plans and your heart is quietly asking whether any of those plans will matter if no one truly knows you. That's what made her presence feel different. She did not enter my life as an interruption. She entered like a pause, I did not know I needed. I had been moving fast, not always because I was inspired, but because stillness made me face things I had not healed. When you keep building, people call you driven. When you keep producing, they call you disciplined. But sometimes movement is just a beautiful disguise for fear. I had to admit that to myself. I was not only chasing the future, I was also trying to outrun the ache of being deeply unseen. Have you ever done that? Have you ever stayed busy enough to avoid asking what your heart was trying to tell you? I think many of us do. We fill the calendar, sharpen the goals, improve the body, upgrade the mind, and still wonder why the soul feels untouched. That was me. I had direction, but not always peace. I had ambition, but not always intimacy with my own truth. Then she appeared, and somehow her quiet attention made all my speed look different. Not wrong, just incomplete. She made me wonder whether progress without presence is just another form of running. But here is where everything shifted. She did not ask me to slow down by demanding less from life. She made me want to slow down because I finally had something worth noticing. Control slows you through fear, but love slows you through reverence. With her, ordinary moments became strangely important. The silence after a long day, the honesty in a small message, the way a person can make time feel less like a resource and more like a room where two souls can breathe. I never expected that. I thought love would make me distracted. Instead, it made me attentive. Presence became a kind of discipline, not the harsh kind, the sacred kind. The kind that says, I will not just give you the leftover fragments of myself after the world has taken the best of me. I will learn to arrive while I am still alive inside. That was hard for me. I had lived as if love could wait until after the mission, after the climb, after the pressure. But she taught me, without saying it directly, that love postponed too long can become love neglected. And a heart, even a patient one, still needs to be met. Look at me when I say this. Someone can wait for you and still deserve your presence while they wait. That sentence humbled me because I began to see the quiet women, the loyal hearts, the people who love without making noise, and I understood how often strength gets taken for granted. Maybe that is you. Maybe you have loved quietly, not because you had nothing to say, but because you hoped someone would hear what your patience was already speaking. Do not pretend you have not felt it. The deepest love is not always loud. Sometimes it is steady enough to be overlooked by people addicted to chaos. She was steady like that, and it forced me to grow. Not because she pushed me, but because her presence made excuses feel dishonest. I could not hide behind busyness forever. I could not keep saying one day to a heart that was present today. I had to ask myself whether I was protecting my purpose or avoiding intimacy. That question was uncomfortable. It cut through the elegant speeches I gave myself. It revealed that sometimes a man can be brave in the world and still afraid in love. He can face risk, pressure, judgment, and uncertainty, yet tremble when one gentle person asks to see him clearly. And that is when everything I believed about patience changed. Patience is not passive. Patience is not sitting in the dark, hoping someone finally learns your value. Real patience has dignity. It waits without begging. It hopes without disappearing. It gives space without abandoning itself. She carried that kind of patience, and it made me respect her in a way attraction alone never could. Attraction can pull the eyes, but patience reveals the soul. When someone has the strength to love without losing themselves, you are not standing in front of weakness. You are standing in front of a quiet miracle. I started to understand that shared purpose does not begin with two people having the same dream. It begins with two people honoring the same truth. The truth that love must make both souls more honest. The truth that ambition without tenderness becomes a machine. The truth that tenderness without direction can become drift. We needed both. Vision and warmth, fire and shelter, movement and rest. She became the mirror where I could see that balance was not a compromise. Balance was an orbit. Two lives circling a shared light without crashing into each other or floating away. That is what I mean when I say she felt like destiny. Not because everything was easy, not because every fear disappeared, not because the universe handed me certainty wrapped in perfect timing. She felt like destiny because my soul recognized a direction in her presence. I became more truthful near her, more grounded, more aware of what mattered. And maybe that is the real sign. The person meant for you does not simply excite your nervous system. They clarify your spirit. They make your future feel less like an escape and more like a home you are finally brave enough to build. I used to think growth meant becoming harder to shake, more efficient with pain, more capable of standing alone. That was the story I told myself because It sounded noble. It sounded disciplined. It sounded like strength. But when I look back honestly, some of what I called growth was just emotional survival, wearing a clean suit. I had learned how to keep moving, how to keep building, how to make progress look graceful, even when something inside me was quietly exhausted. Then she came into my life, and for the first time, growth did not feel like becoming untouchable. It felt like becoming reachable without becoming weak. That was not easy for me. I had built an identity around being composed, around being a person who could handle pressure without asking for much. I thought being needed was acceptable, but needing someone felt dangerous. There is a strange loneliness in being seen as strong all the time. People assume you have fewer places that hurt. They assume your silence means certainty. They assume your distance means peace. But sometimes silence is just a room you locked from the inside because you were afraid no one would know how to enter gently. She entered gently. That is what changed everything. She did not try to break the door down. She did not turn my guardedness into a battle. She simply stood there with a kind of patience that made me realize I had been preparing for war in a place where love was offering shelter. Have you ever met someone who made your defenses feel unnecessary, not by defeating them, but by making them feel tired? That was her effect on me. She made me want to stop proving I could survive everything alone. She made me wonder what kind of man I might become if I stopped treating tenderness like a risk to my future. But here is what I did not expect. The closer I came to being loved, the more I had to confront the parts of myself that did not believe I deserved ease. That sounds painful because it was. When you have lived a long time in pressure, peace can feel unfamiliar. You almost mistrust it. You look for the hidden cost. You wait for the condition. You assume love will eventually ask you to abandon yourself because somewhere along the way you learned that closeness always came with a price. I had to unlearn that slowly, and she became the mirror where that unlearning began. In that mirror, I saw my fear of being ordinary. I saw my fear of being emotionally dependent. I saw this younger part of me that thought love had to be earned through achievement, usefulness, or endurance. She reflected those things without humiliating me. That mattered. A person who can show you your wounds without making you feel ashamed is rare. She did not make my broken places feel like evidence against me. She made them feel like places where light had not yet been allowed to enter. And in her presence, I began to understand that healing is not becoming flawless. Healing is becoming honest without running away. Trust deepened there, not all at once. I do not believe the deepest trust happens instantly. I think it grows like a system that keeps proving its stability under different conditions. Anyone can be kind when everything is easy. Anyone can sound loving when there is no pressure. Real trust is tested in misunderstanding, in silence, in delay, in the moments when ego wants to defend and the heart has to choose connection again. She taught me that love is not the absence of friction. Love is the willingness to return to truth before pride turns distance into a habit. And that was the emotional turn I did not see coming. I had spent so much time trying to find certainty, but love was teaching me commitment before certainty. Not reckless commitment, not blind attachment, something deeper. The decision to show up with integrity while the future is still unfolding. The decision to keep your heart clean even when fear gives you reasons to become cold. Tell me, have you ever wanted reassurance so badly that you almost sabotaged the very peace you were asking for? I have. I had to learn that not every fear is a warning. Sometimes fear is just an old wound recognizing a new door. She never became my excuse to stop growing. That is important. Real love should never become a hiding place from your calling. It should become the ground beneath it. With her, I did not feel invited to shrink. I felt invited to align. My ambitions started to change shape. It became less about outrunning emptiness and more about building something worthy of the life I wanted to share. I began to ask better questions. Not only what can I build, but who am I becoming while I build it? Not only how far can I go, but can I remain human when I arrive? That question stayed with me because success without humanity becomes a cold planet. It may look impressive from far away, but nothing grows there. Love brought atmosphere back into my life, made the future breathable. It reminded me that purpose is not just about impact. It is also about intimacy with the people and truths that keep you grounded. She did not compete with my vision. She gave it gravitas. She made the dream feel less like a tower and more like a home. And maybe that is what shared purpose really means. Not two people staring at each other forever, two souls standing side by side, facing life with clearer hearts. So when I say she was my mirror, I mean she reflected both my strength and my avoidance. She reflected my courage and my fear. She reflected the man I was proud of and the man I still needed to become. That is not fantasy. That is sacred work. A soulmate is not someone who removes every difficult lesson from your life. A soulmate is someone whose presence makes the lesson worth learning. She did not complete me. She called me forward. And slowly, I began to see that love was not the opposite of growth. Love was the most honest form of growth I had ever known. I started to understand shared purpose in a way I had never understood it before. I used to think shared purpose meant two people wanting the same external life, the same destination, the same visible dream. I thought compatibility was a kind of strategic alignment, like two systems pointing toward one target. But with her, I learned that shared purpose begins much deeper than plans. It begins in the way two people treat truth. It begins in the way they handle silence, disappointment, patience, pressure, and hope. It begins in whether both hearts are willing to become more honest, not just more attached. She made me see that love is not only about feeling something powerful. It is about becoming clearer because of what you feel. That was new for me. I had known emotions that created fog, emotions that made people possessive, reactive, afraid, or distracted. But this was different. Her presence did not blur my mind. It refined it. It made me ask what was real and what was just noise. It made me separate desire from recognition, loneliness from devotion, fantasy from alignment. Have you ever met someone who did not make life easier in a shallow way, but made your soul easier to understand? That is what she did. She brought emotional clarity, not by explaining me to myself like a teacher, but by standing near me with a kind of quiet truth that made pretending feel unnecessary. Around her, I did not want to exaggerate my strength. I did not want to hide my tenderness. I did not want to turn every feeling into a strategy. I wanted to be present enough to notice what love was actually revealing. And what it revealed was simple, but not small. I had been building a life with power, but I had not always been building it with softness. But here is the part that humbled me. Softness did not make the vision weaker. It made it more human. It made the mission less about escaping pain and more about creating meaning. Before her, I could imagine achievement. I could imagine impact. I could imagine reaching the horizon and proving something to the world. But after her, I began to imagine peace inside the horizon. I began to imagine a life where the future was not just impressive from the outside, but warm from the inside. That is a different kind of ambition. That is ambition with a soul. I think many people chase love the way they chase success, like something to acquire, something to win. Delays when the world asks if they are complete. I used to that kind of love because it felt like another performance. But she showed me that real connection is not acquisition. It is recognition. You do not grab it like a trophy. You recognize it like a reflection. The mirror does not chase you. It simply shows you what is true when you finally stand still long enough to look. And maybe that is why I could not ignore her. She reflected something I already carried but had not yet trusted. That reflection changed how I measured love. I stopped asking only, does this person make me feel wanted? I started asking, does this connection make me more truthful? Does it make me more patient? Does it bring me closer to my purpose without pulling me away from my humanity? Does it help me return to myself instead of perform for approval? Those questions matter because not every intense bond is sacred. Not every attraction is alignment. Not every person who makes your heart race knows how to hold your heart with care. You know what I mean? Fire is not enough if there is no shelter. With her, I felt both. There was fire, yes, but not the kind that burns everything down just to prove it exists. It was the kind of fire that gives warmth, direction, and light. There was shelter too, but not the kind that traps you in comfort until you forget your calling. The fire shelter that restored me. It was shelter that restored me, so if I could go back into the world with a cleaner spirit. That balance taught me something I will never forget. Love should not turn you into less of yourself. Love should help you become more fully responsible for the self you were given. And responsibility is not cold. It is sacred. To love someone means I become responsible for the energy I bring into their life. It means I cannot keep calling myself honest if I only reveal truth when it is convenient. It means I cannot keep asking to be understood while refusing to be open. It means I cannot expect her patience to carry what my presence refuses to meet. That realization did not make me feel accused. It made me feel awakened. Because when someone loves you quietly and consistently, you begin to see that care is not something to consume. It is something to honor. Maybe that is the moment I truly began to believe in soulmates, not as a fantasy, but as a responsibility. A soulmate is not someone sent to rescue you from the work of becoming. A soulmate may be the person who makes that work impossible to avoid. She did not save me from myself. She helped me face myself without hatred. She made me see that my fear of love was not wisdom. It was protection that had outlived its purpose. And when protection outlives its purpose, it becomes a prison. Have you ever realized that the wall you built to survive is now the wall keeping you from being held? I had to lower that wall one honest moment at a time. Not dramatically, not perfectly, just truthfully. I learned to say less that sounded impressive and more that sounded real. I learned that presence is a daily offering, not a mood. I learned that patience is not waiting forever for someone to become ready, but creating enough safety for readiness to grow. And I learned that love, when it is real, does not make destiny smaller. It gives destiny direction. It becomes the mirror that says, this is who you are when you stop running, and this is who you can become when you let yourself be seen. By the time I understood that love could clarify me, I had to face a deeper question. What was I actually building my life for? I had spent years treating purpose like a summit, something high, distant, and difficult enough to justify every sacrifice. But she made me see purpose as a place where the heart could finally breathe. That changed the architecture of everything. I stopped asking whether love fit into my future and started asking whether my future was worthy of love. That question did not weaken me. It stripped away the noise I had been calling ambitions. I think many people are afraid of being loved because love removes their hiding places. It sounds beautiful from a distance, but up close, it asks for honesty in the rooms we prefer to decorate. With her, I could not keep pretending that every dream was pure. Some dreams were born from vision. Some were born from old pain trying to become untouchable. She did not shame that in me, and maybe that is why I trusted her. She simply reflected it back with compassion, as if to say, you are allowed to build from peace now, not fear anymore. That sentence lived in me. Build from peace, not fear anymore. I had never considered how different those two angels feel inside the soul. Fear can create motion, but it leaves the body guarded. Peace can create motion too, but it lets the heart remain human while it moves. She became the place where I noticed the difference. around her, I did not feel the constant need to defend my momentum. I felt invited to examine it. Have you ever wanted something so badly, then realized you never asked whether the wanting was healing you or only chasing you deeper? That question became uncomfortable because the answer was not always noble. Sometimes I was building because I loved possibility. Sometimes I was building because I was afraid of stillness. Sometimes I was trying to prove I was not the boy who once felt unseen, unheard, or replaceable. She never asked for that confession, but her presence pulled it out of me quietly. And here is the turn I did not expect. When I admitted the truth, I did not lose power. I recovered energy. A lie requires maintenance. A truth, even a painful one, gives something back to the soul. That is why I say love became meaning, not just emotion. Emotion rises and falls. Meaning stays and teaches. Meaning is what remains when the excitement's quieted and the question becomes, can I become more loving, more courageous, more present because this person exists in my life? With her, the answer kept becoming yes. Not a loud yes, not a desperate yes, a grounded yes. The kind you feel in your chest when your spirit recognizes safety without becoming asleep. I had confused intensity with destiny before, but this was different. This felt less like a storm inside me. It felt like direction. That may not sound romantic to everyone, but to me, direction is sacred. Direction means the heart is not just reacting, it is listening. Direction means desire has been touched by wisdom. She did not make me forget the world. She made me see the world with a cleaner lens. I began to notice where I was wasting attention, where I was giving urgency to things that had no soul, where I was confusing pressure with importance. Love did not remove responsibility. It purified responsibility. It asked me to choose what carved my life and presence. Before her, I thought the greatest danger was failing at the mission. After her, I understood a deeper danger, succeeding at the wrong mission, because I never let love clarify my motives. That realization frightened me in the cleanest way. It was not panic. It was awakening. I could build a future so large that people admired it and still feel empty if the foundation was not honest. What is the point of reaching distant places is if the person inside you remains lost? What is the point of being seen by the world if you remain hidden from yourself too? That is the kind of question a mirror asks without speaking. She made me less impressed with appearance and more devoted to alignment. Alignment became the new measure. Did my words match my presence? Did my vision match my values? Did my love match my attention? I could not call myself committed to destiny while neglecting the human connection that made destiny meaningful. Wait, hear this carefully. The wrong love can distract you from your purpose, yes, but the right love reveals the purpose behind the purpose. It shows you who the dream is meant to serve with tenderness too. And when I looked at her, I understood that service begins close. It begins in how I listen when someone trusts me with their fear. It begins in how I respond when the day has been heavy. It begins in whether I make peace easier for the person who has chosen to stand beside me. Love made the grand vision intimate. It brought the universe down to the way I held a silence, the way I kept a promise, the way I returned after misunderstanding with humility instead of pride. Small things became evidence of the whole ordinary life. If you are listening and wondering whether real love will ever recognize you, I want you to breathe for a moment. Do not confuse delay with, do not confuse quietness with quietness, invisibility. What is real does not always rush, and what is sacred does not always announce itself. Sometimes it waits until two people are humble enough to see each other clearly. I did not believe in soulmates because I thought that destiny could be controlled. Then she reflected me back to myself, and I learned that destiny is not controlled. It is recognized, honored, and lived together. I think the deepest change she brought into my life was not the belief that love exists, but the understanding that love does not have to arrive with fear attached to it. Before her, I thought anything precious had to be protected by control. I thought if something mattered, I needed to manage every distance, every silence, every possible outcome. But real connection does not grow under constant surveillance. It grows in trust. It grows when two people stop treating each other like risks to be calculated and begin treating each other like souls to be honored. That was a little bit difficult for me because I had trained myself to prepare for loss before loss. I would notice beauty and immediately search for the weakness in it. I would feel closeness and quietly prepare for distance. Maybe you know that pattern. Maybe you have held love in your hands while already imagining the day it might disappear. It is a strange kind of sadness to stand in front of something real and still be haunted by endings that have not arrived. I did that more than I want to admit, and her steadiness exposed it. But here is what changed me. She never asked me to pretend I was fearless. She never needed me to perform some polished version of confidence. She allowed me to be about the tremor beneath my certainty, and somehow that honesty made the fear smaller. Not gone, but smaller. It became something I could hold instead of something that controlled me. I learned that the right person does not shame your fear. They help you understand what it is protecting. They help you see that love is not asking you to be invincible. It is asking you to be present. Presence became the place where my old beliefs started to dissolve. I had believed that destiny required force, that if something mattered, I had to chase it, secure it, prove it, and make it stay. But she taught me a quieter law. What is real does not need to be strangled into existence. What is aligned does not need constant panic to survive. It needs care. It needs honesty. It needs two people returning with clean hands and open hearts. Tell me, have you ever held on so tightly to love that you could not feel it breathing? I had to learn the difference between devotion and possession. Devotion says, I choose you with freedom in my chest. Possession says, I am afraid of who I become if I lose you. Those are not the same. One is love. The other is fear, wearing love's language. With her, I began to recognize the difference in myself. I did not want to cage what felt sacred. I wanted to become worthy of standing beside it. That is a different posture. It is not desperate. It is reverent. It does not say, complete me. It says, reflect me truthfully. And the mirror kept doing its work. She reflected my desire to love well, but also my impatience to be reassured. She reflected my capacity for loyalty, but also my tendency to retreat when emotions became too exposed. She reflected the man who wanted a sacred bond and the man who sometimes feared the responsibility of being truly known. That is not an easy reflection to face, but it is necessary. Because a soulmate is not the person who confirms every version of you. A soulmate is the person whose presence invites the most honest version of you to remain. Wait, hear this before you misunderstand me. I am not saying love should hurt to be real. I am not saying how struggle proves destiny. I am saying real love has a way of revealing what is unfinished, not to punish you, but to free you. There is a difference between pain that breaks your spirit and truth that breaks your illusion. She did not break my spirit. She broke the illusion that I could become whole while hiding from my own heart. And Once that illusion cracked, I could finally see how much tenderness I had been refusing. I began to understand that peace is not boring. Peace only feels boring to a nervous system addicted to uncertainty. When you have lived on emotional alarms, calm can feel empty at first. You may mistake safety for a lack of passion. You may crave the old chaos because at least it feels familiar. But love, real love, slowly retrains the soul. It teaches you that you do not need to suffer to prove depth. You do not need to beg to prove devotion. You do not need to confuse anxiety with chemistry. Sometimes the deepest connection feels like coming home. That is what she became to me, not a destination that ended my growth, but a home inside the journey. A place where I could return without losing motion. A place where ambition could remove its armor and still remain alive, still wanted to build, to rise, to give, to become. But now I wanted to do it with a heart that knew where it belonged. That changed the energy of everything. Purpose became less lonely. Discipline became less harsh. Even silence became less threatening. Her love did not make life smaller. It made the inner universe expand. So when I say I did not believe in soulmates until I met her, I did not believe love could feel both free and faithful. I did not believe someone could see my complexity and still bring calm instead of confusion. I did not believe a mirror could be gentle enough to heal and honest enough to transform. But now I do. Not with desperation, not with obsession, not with obsession, with a sacred calm. If it is real, it will not need to be forced. It will recognize you and then it will teach you how to recognize yourself. I used to think the final proof of love would be certainty, a feeling so strong that doubt could never enter the room. I thought if something was meant for me, it would arrive with complete, no hesitation, no fear, no questions left in the dark. But now I know real love is not the absence of every question. Real love is the presence of something steady while the questions breathe. It is not a contract with the future. It is a sacred way of standing in the present. And when I met her, I did not receive every answer at once. I received a mirror, and that mirror asked me to become honest enough to see. She showed me that the soul does not recognize love through panic. It recognizes love through peace. Not a shallow peace, not the kind that avoids truth, but the kind that can hold truth without turning away. Around her, I felt the strange calm of being known without being consumed. I felt the quiet discipline of wanting to love better, not just feel more. That is when I began to understand that a soulmate is not someone who makes life perfect. A soulmate is someone whose presence makes life more truthful. They do not erase the storms. No, they teach you where place your anchor. And maybe that is what I want you to hear most. Love is not supposed to make you disappear into another person. It is supposed to bring you home to yourself with more courage. For so long, I thought being loved deeply meant losing control, losing direction, losing the sharp edge that helped me move through the world. But the right love did not take my strength. It purified it. It removed the fear hiding inside it. It made my ambition less lonely and my silence less heavy. Have you ever imagined that maybe the love meant for you will not weaken your purpose, but reveal its heart? But here is the final turn. I did not find her by chasing the idea of a soulmate. I found her when life had made me humble enough to recognize a soul, not just desire a feeling. That matters. Because we can chase romance and still avoid intimacy. We can chase attention and still fear being seen. We can chase someone's presence and still refuse our own healing. I had to stop looking for someone to complete the image of my life and start becoming someone who could stand in truth without hiding. Only then could I see her clearly. Only then could the mirror do its work. She did not complete me like a missing piece. I need to say that again because it is the center of everything. She did not arrive to fix my emptiness or carry the parts of me I refuse to face. She reflected the version of me I was too afraid to become. More patient, more present, more honest, more willing to let love be a guide instead of a reward. And in that reflection, I saw that destiny is not only about where we go. Destiny is also about who we become when someone sacred stands close enough to reveal us. That is why I no longer laugh at the word soulmate. I still do not see it as fantasy. I do not see it as a perfect person, a magical guarantee, or a reason to stop doing the work. I see it as recognition with responsibility. I see it as two people meeting in a way that makes both of them more awake. It asks for patience, it asks for presence, it asks for courage. It asks you to love without turning love into control, to trust without abandoning wisdom, to build without forgetting the heart that made building meaningful. Look at me when I say this. The person meant for your soul will not need you to perform forever. They will not make you beg to be understood. They will not confuse your tenderness for for weakness or your patience for something to exploit. What is real will recognize you not only when you are shining, but when you are quiet, uncertain, and still becoming. And if you have been that woman, the one who loved quietly, waited gently, and wondered if anyone would ever see the depth behind your silence, please hear me. Your love was never small because it was soft. There is a kind of woman who does not need to be allowed to be unforgettable. She loves with a steady flame. She notices what others rush past. She holds hope without making it a prison. If that is you, I want you to know that the right heart will not require you to become chaos just to be chosen. You do not have to scream to be sacred. You do not have to prove your worth to someone who has the eyes to recognize it. Real love will not make you feel invisible inside your own devotion. Real love will meet you there. And for me, that is the blessing she became. Not possession, not desperation, not a story built on fear. A blessing, she reminded me that love can be calm and still be powerful. It can be gentle and still be life-changing. It can arrive quietly and still rearrange the entire direction of a man's soul. I used to think destiny was something I had to force into Western existence through control. Now, I believe destiny is something we learn to recognize through alignment. It does not always shout. Sometimes it looks at you with peace and makes your whole life feel less divided. So I leave you with this from the most honest place in me. Do not chase love that makes you abandon yourself. Do not worship intensity and when your soul is asking for peace. Do not mistake delay for rejection or quietness for lack of depth. If it is real, it will not need to be forced. It will recognize you. It will respect your becoming. It will make room for your purpose and your tenderness. And when it finds you, may it feel like a mirror, not a cage. May it show you who you are. May it show you where destiny wants to go.